some who were privy to these cases said to me, well, that's the way to go. And I prayed, and the Lord said, well, mercy triumphs over judgment. And I would say to these people, no, we're going to forgive you. We're going to give you another opportunity to make good. And thankfully, I might say that the cases I have in mind at the moment, everyone took that opportunity and have made good in their life. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Now, there are some cases where God does not show mercy. He said, I will show mercy to whom I will show mercy. But we have to ask God that our sentence comes from the throne of God. You know, as David said, let my sentence come from your throne. And when we have a decision to make, you know, let it come from God, not from ourselves. And then, without partiality, we must treat everybody the same. And everybody agrees with that until it comes to themselves. And I've had, well, what shall I say, seasoned pastors who have fallen into sin and have continued in that sin. And I've said, well, didn't you think God was going to deal with you? Well, he said, I thought I would be different, that God would understand, and he would excuse me. I said, God is no respecter of persons. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. Well, there we are. There's no partiality with God, and we ourselves must not show partiality. We must not show partiality. You know, we have building programs, and we have friends who want to participate in this venture, contractors and so forth. And I've had to say to them, you know, as a friend, I would like you to have this contract, but because I must be ethical, you will bid alongside the others. If your bid is the best, you get it. But if it isn't, the other person gets it, without partiality, without hypocrisy. You know, one of the things I've always desired is that for myself, I would be the same on the pulpit as I am off the pulpit, the same off the pulpit as I'm in the pulpit. In other words, I've always desired to be holy, and that has permeated my very being from the beginning of the time when I was a Christian. You know, I wanted to be holy. I did not want to be a hypocrite. I did not want to stand in the pulpit and declare one thing and live another thing. And I've noticed this, that so many preachers, unfortunately so many, preach a good message in the pulpit, but when they get off, their lives contradict their message. I remember in particular one pastor coming to me, and he said, you know, the pastor that has just fallen, in other words, his sin has just been revealed. He preached the most outstanding message I've ever heard on righteousness. And I said, was he living it? Well, no. Was he what? You know, that's what Paul said in Romans chapter 2. Look, you say a person should not commit adultery, but you are committing adultery. And Paul said, you know, don't be deceived. God will judge you. See, it's not what we preach, although that's very important indeed, that we preach right doctrine. Please don't misunderstand me. But preaching right doctrine alone will not save us. We must live the life. And then I want to touch very briefly on the other aspect of wisdom. And that is, shall I say, the character of wisdom, in the sense, wisdom is the ability to make right choices, And as leaders, you will constantly have to be faced with this problem, that situations arise and people are going to come to you, Pastor, what should we do? And you've got to make the right choice. And God has emphasized to me that when I make the right choice, then I will receive the fruits of that righteous choice. If I make a wrong choice, then I'm going to receive the fruits of a wrong choice. So making the right choice is very important. And we have to often wait upon God to make sure that we do make right choices in any given situation. And, this thought of wisdom, the ability to guide people and to put them into their right slot, their right ministry, is one of the attributes of wisdom. And so wisdom is so important. And it comes back to the home. In 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verses 4 to 5, it says, he that cannot rule his own house cannot rule the church of God. And so rulership and wisdom start in the home, governing your home correctly. And that is so important. I have people who come to me and say, look, we were sent to so-and-so's house, so-and-so pastor's house, and he was wonderful in the pulpit, but we come to his home, we find it's a disaster. The wife shouting at the pastor responding. In other words, he can't govern his own household. And that invariably flows over to the church. There are problems in the church if the pastor can't govern his own house. And then something else that is an attribute of wisdom, and that is diligence. Diligence. Working hard. All famous men, all men that have risen, whether in the secular world or in the ministry, have been hard workers. They have been diligent. And being old, I would give you a counsel. Be diligent when you're young. Study when you're young. And get all the papers you need, your degrees set, you see. And later on, you'll enjoy the fruits of it. But the young age, that is in the 20s, is a time, or the late teens, is a time to study. See, it's a time to study. And then the rest of your life is spent in study, I know that. But the foundation of truth comes when you're young. And you want to lay a good foundation in your own life. And in so doing, you see, you can build upon that foundation afterwards. And a diligent person will stand before great men, be used of God. But the slothful, well, his life disappears, and at the end he has nothing. He has nothing. No, as I near the end of my life, I can look back and say, well, I've left a legacy to the church, which I hope will be a blessing to many generations. I've written many books, and I trust that they will be a blessing. But I've tried, by the grace of God, to spend my time diligently when my health has permitted it. And in so doing, I leave a legacy to the church. And I want you to do the same. Well, how am I going to finish? Well, I want to finish with Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 6. That God, speaking to the nation of Israel, said, look, if you keep my commandments, the nations around you will say, behold, a wise people. Keeping the commandments of God leads to wisdom. And also, may I say this from Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 26, that the man who pleases God, God will give wisdom, knowledge, and joy. And the key there to pleasing God is to keep his commandments. He that keepeth my commandments is he that loveth me. And that is going to lead into wisdom. Because the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, and the fear of the Lord is to hate iniquity. Oh, I believe God has raised up this building to impart his wisdom unto hundreds of people that shall be influenced, perhaps thousands, who shall be influenced. And all I can say to you, dear ones, as I finish this greeting on this memorable day of dedication, that you will indeed apply your heart to wisdom. That is what Moses said in Psalm 90. He said, teach us to number our days, that we might apply our heart unto wisdom. King David said, wisdom is the principal thing. I say, two, seek wisdom. And in seeking wisdom and becoming wise, well, I tell you this, you have such peace in your own life. You have such contentment. And when you come to the end of your life, you can look back and say, well, God accomplished something in my life because it's God who does it. But we put ourselves on the pathway of God, and you'll be surprised what God will do for you. And so I want to finish with that, and I just want to say, meditate daily in his word. God said in Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4, I beg your pardon, chapter 4 and verse 6 and 7 and 8, he says this, look, meditate upon my law. And so let your mind be filled with the Word of God, read the Word of God daily, pray daily, go to church, and you'll be surprised what you do. And so I bid you adieu. I love you very much. I would have wanted to be here myself, but my health does not permit it. God still has some work to do in my physical body to enable me to travel. But I do rejoice that I have this opportunity of speaking to you in this way today. And let me leave you with this thought, that this place has been raised up to produce teachers of righteousness, to prepare the Philippines for revival. And also, one of the principal truths that would come from this place is the wisdom of God in all its aspects. And so that's what I see in the Spirit. The wisdom of God enveloping the building, and that you might be wise people, because the wise, or the teachers of righteousness, as Daniel said, Daniel 12, said, shall shine as the stars in heaven.